What? Oh, no, I got to practice this. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I heard it. You got the big high thing. Yeah. Whoever came up with it, City Manager needs to be fired. It's terrible. And our sign, the Mary Esther, is in the bushes now. They're branded down. I know, I know. Well, I'm gonna bring it up tonight, and if I can, Susan, if I can get 3 votes to raise the sign, I'm gonna take it. But if I can't, the heck with it. It's you guys. Thank you, April. This is cool. Thank you.
There it is.
Thank you. Huh? I've been in his van, exactly. It is super. Huh? Pretty much. What's this thing?
Chris, are you ready?
Huh? You ready? We're a minute, about 3 minutes. Okay, all right. Anybody gonna give the, no. Okay. Hello, everybody. We're calling to order the public workshop for the City of Mary Esther City Council, 25th of March, 2026 at 6 p.m. Will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Like play ball, you got your hat, you know? Okay. Okay, at this time, I'd like the city clerk to do a roll call of the city council.
Councilmember Sutton.
Here.
Councilmember Coxwell.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Present.
Councilmember Carter. Mayor Pro Tem Oder.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, we got a, item number 4 is a presentation and discussion. 4.1 is wastewater forced main project update. City Manager, you want to take that for action?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I've got a slide deck for this I want to run through with y'all. And so, yeah, let me put that up first. That would help. That way everybody can see it. Okay. And so what I thought I would do is we'll go through this. If you all have any questions as I'm going through it, please stop me. We've got a couple folks here that I think can help aid in this discussion. So we have Okaloosa County Water and Sewer Director Mike Hackett, as well as Okaloosa Water and Sewer Deputy Director Mark Wise as well. We also have, let me see if he is on. I believe we will also have Eric Christensen with the Emerald Coast Regional Council join us as well. So just briefly, the purpose of this workshop is to walk through where we stand on the wastewater project. As we all know, we have basically 2 options, one being to rehab our existing plant, the other option being to build a force main to Okaloosa County wastewater treatment facility. So what I'd like to do is give you an update for where we are on the wastewater force main project, review some cost estimates for both alternatives, look how potentially each one of these options gets funded, and then also discuss what operating costs might look like moving forward. So one thing I want to point out is this is a presentation about what we know. It's not necessarily a recommendation. So keep that in mind. The goal is to give you all information that you need in order to make a decision on which path we choose moving forward. And since it is a work session, no formal action can be taken today. Of course, you can give direction on how we bring this back to a future council meeting. So with that, we'll see if I can get the clicker to work. The other button, well, that helps. Okay, so why are we here? So we're here because we are under an FDEP consent order that was issued in November 2022. We had an amendment to that on October 2023, which required corrective action on our aging wastewater treatment facility. I mentioned the 2 alternatives that we have tonight. First, a quick kind of history for how we got here from the Bard study through Hurlburt Field withdrawal. Second, the cost estimates, as I mentioned, and then finally the options for how we're going to fund this. FDEP is waiting on us to make a decision, and so I would like to bring this back to you to the April meeting. You don't necessarily have to make a decision, but the one thing that DEP is going to be looking for is some significant progress. And that's just because of the length of time we've been working on this. So this kind of gives you that timeline that I was mentioning. So the consent order in November 2022, we had Barge Design Solutions complete a preliminary engineering study that looked at 4 alternatives, one of which was running a line to Fort Walton Beach and connecting to their system. And then we had the option to rehab the existing plant, and then a couple different options for connecting to the county's wastewater treatment plant. The cost for that, we compared it with the plan developed by Mott McDonald in 2019 as well. In March 2023, the council did have a workshop and gave staff direction to explore the force main option to Okaloosa County. The option for running it through City of Fort Walton Beach was prohibitively expensive. I think we had to have wastewater storage for something like 25 million gallons. It was extremely expensive, so we took that off the table. Barge did put together a technical memorandum in 2024 looking at a combined scenario of partnering with Hurlburt Field and sharing a wastewater line to Okaloosa County, Mary Esther and Hurlburt sharing a line. That cost was pretty expensive. It was almost $30 million. In December 2025, Hurlburt Field withdrew. They actually had a very similar study that they had completed to look at alternatives, and they made the decision to continue with their existing plant and just make modifications. And so that led us to January of this year, where Okaloosa County Water and Sewer was very helpful and updated the cost estimate just for Mary Esther, so we could see what it would cost to run a line just for Mary Esther to their wastewater treatment facility, which is what we have for you here tonight. So the two, probably the most important slide here, these are the two options. We have option A, which is the force main to the county, which is estimated about $14 million. The option to run it to rehab our existing plant is about $15.4 million. That option is basically the Mott McDonald study escalated for inflation. One of the things when we look at that project, you know, there are some pros to it in the sense that it can be phased. They had 7 phases, which is an awful lot, but 7 phases over 10 years. One of the risks that we would have that would be ongoing is the spray field. So that spray field line is old, and at some point is going to have to be either rehabbed or replaced. There was some funding in option B for rehab. It wasn't exactly clear though if it was all of it. Nonetheless, even if you did that, we would still have that liability of that line. And it's about, I think, a 6-mile long line, so it's pretty long. With the force main to the county, Okaloosa County, our understanding would basically take over that force main after it leaves the city wastewater treatment facility. And so there is a reduced sort of scope of infrastructure, of risk, I would say, liability, because we would be responsible for our wastewater storage tank as well as the pump that would be located here at our existing facility. The debt service, we'll get to that. That's a little bit challenging to estimate at this point, but we'll talk about that a little bit. as well as the funding gap for the rehab option. So on this slide, what I'm trying to show is essentially what we kind of know right now, which is that we have a state appropriation that's already been awarded of $1 million for the Force Main project. It was actually awarded for design and engineering. However, I've reached out to DEP and that they are flexible. So if we obtain other funding for design engineering, we can move that funding to capital construction. We have been working with the, acronyms, Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. I think that's pretty close. Close. They have an infrastructure readiness grant that is available. It's a non-competitive grant. We've already kind of submitted our letter of interest and received a lot of positive feedback there. So I would say that's pretty close to being funded. Now, could those both be applied to the rehab of the wastewater plant? Possibly, but that's an unknown at this point. One thing that obviously couldn't be applied would be sale of the property. If we got to that point and council was interested in selling that property, we would have to get an appraisal done. And so this is just a number really based on just the size of the property and the facilities that are there. But that could be high.
Jared, I have a question. So are these numbers strictly just talking about the construction aspect? This is not talking, this, I don't see in here where it's talking about how much the county is going to charge us to send our wastewater.
Yeah, so that we'll get to that here shortly. I think that's the next slide.
Okay.
And so you can see there's a number of these items that, yeah, we don't have an answer to yet. We've talked to the county about other resources. There may be some that are available, but I think it sounds like we're going to have to be a little further down the road before we get any commitments. But it is fair to say that right now we do have 1.9 million that we can put towards the force main that we may not necessarily be able to put towards the rehab. And so I think this is kind of what you were asking about, Councilmember Sutton. So what we've done is we've looked at the contracts that we have right now for water and sewer operations. As you know, about a year ago, we went out to bid, so we have several numbers for what it would cost to operate the plant. We've looked at the cost through Okaloosa County that they would potentially charge for the treatment of wastewater. And so that's what the number that you have up here is when you.
Would everybody please silence their phones? Appreciate it. I did not say that, and somebody obviously wasn't listening.
When you add that in our current flows, it's about 878,000 is what we've come up to for the O&M. And so for the force main. So that includes both the cost to send the wastewater to the county as well as the cost for electricity for that pump. So the part that right now is a little difficult to estimate would be that if we come up with the funding for the force main project, if we look at the current options that are available, it looks pretty clear like that cost is going to be lower than the rehab. And so what really kind of tips the scales here is the additional debt you would have to take on for the rehab of the plant. So, for example, and this would be a low interest loan, but if we were to use SRF to get a loan, say at 2%, for every $1 million, that's about $45,000 in debt service, right? And so it only takes, if the force main is, let's say, $5 million cheaper, that's close to the break-even point on operations. So you could go and rehab the entire plant. If that cost is 5 million more than the force main, you're essentially breaking even. It's basically the same. The other piece to that is that again, you would still in that scenario would still have the liability for the spray field line. And it's hard to estimate, but every now and then the EPA and DEP has additional regulations. And so it's not like you're rehabbing the plant once and you're done. There's a good chance that 20 years from now, you're having to make additional upgrades. Mark and Mike can speak to that much better than I can. But I have no doubt that at a certain point you'd be making upgrades again. Yes, sir.
Regardless of the option, well, let me put it this way, if we take the force main approach and all the work is done, can the citizens of Mary Esther foresee a substantial rate increase in their water and sewer rates?
That's a different question, I think, than what we're discussing tonight. The goal is to get that capital cost as low as possible. And so the answer to your question is going to depend on the grants that are received. The benefit, and actually it doesn't really matter with either project, is that if we went the route of the force main, we are probably 4 to 5 years out from getting that project done. So you have several rounds available to submit state appropriation request, as well as, I'll just use the acronym, OLDCC has another program called the DSIP program that we may be eligible for. And so that's another opportunity for grant funding. At the end of the day, when we started this project, this discussion, we were trying to get the cost down to, say, city participation of about 5 million that we would have to put forward, because we do have some reserves as well as some additional debt capacity. But when you talk about rates, we're not going to be able to give that answer until we get further down the road. The one thing I can say with certainty is that with either one of these, there isn't an option to lower rates.
Well, I didn't think they would go down, but I was wondering how much of an increase would go up. I know we're gonna have to do something, and at the end of the day, that cost, a portion of that cost is gonna go off to the consumer, which is the user. You know, the city's managing the product process, and they're paying in a sense, you know, so I was wondering, as we project our increases in those utilities, can we hedge our bets so the pain won't be so much at one time? Like, I know we did that one time, 10%, 10%. I'm not advocating that, but if we can soften the blow, because it is going to go up no matter what option we take. Somewhere at the end of the day, this new facility, this new way of processing sewage is going to be a cost.
I would
Yes,
like
sir.
to remind the council to move their mics forward.
Thank you.
Okay, I got to think with that also.
Real
Can-
quick,
go ahead.
though, to address the comment. I think right now what we're sort of looking at is, we know we have to do A or B. So which option do we think is the best long-term in terms of cost, responsiveness, the ability to manage our rates? Because that is a point that I think is definitely worth considering.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, we have the highest rates in Oglala County water sewer. And like he's saying, if they're only going to go up, you know, why are we? I know you have to pick one or the other, but the rates are high because of infrastructure repairs. That's why.
The rates are high because we put it off for decades. So we had
Okay.
decades of, I'm being very honest.
No,
We put it
Go
off
for it.
for decades. The cost of infrastructure is more expensive now. And so, you know, if you increased rates $5 a month, 15, 20 years ago, we would be in a different place.
Okay.
That all being said, we are nowhere near the highest in the state of Florida. We may be in this particular county, but I think that's a snapshot in time. I won't name check anyone, but I know there are cities that today probably ought to have higher rates and may be in the same position that we're in 5, 10 years down the road.
Okay.
I have a question too to send to the county. So I know that y'all have another plant on the north end. Do you have any future plans to do any additional expansion here at like Arbany?
You need to
Come
go
on
up to
up,
the
Mark.
microphone if we're going to play this game and introduce yourself.
Mark Wise, Deputy Director for Cuscaden Water and Sewer. I'm also the lead engineer there. In our 5-year CIP, there is not any major projects that are more than $1 million projects. The plant has a capacity of 15 million gallons a day, and our actual flows right now are around 7 or 8 million gallons a day. So the plant does have capacity. We're a little tighter on our RIBS capacity, our effluent disposal. We have a capacity of 10, and the flows are again around 6 or 7, so we're a little bit closer on that.
So with bringing, like, let's just say that the council chooses to move forward with that option and then bringing us on board. And then what if Herbert Field in another year says, okay, we are going to now send ours?
I've spoke with Herbert personally, wondering about that scenario, and what they've told us that they're going to spend the money to invest in their plant, and they don't foresee, that's for the medium term. It's possible they could come back to us 10 or 15, 20 years from now and want to explore, but I don't think that's a real possibility in the next year or two. But if it did, their flows are about the same as y'all's. So if you add 500,000 gallons a day from y'all, 500,000 gallons a day from Holbert, the plant itself has some capacity.
Tell them a little bit about our 3 trains and how, after we get past 10, things can start to change.
Well, in Fort Walton or Crestview?
And, Arbany.
Yeah, at the Arbany-Pritchett plant, we have the 15 million gallons a day is 3 separate trains. So all 3 of those are in operation right now. If we have to take one of them out of service, for repairs or something, the flow will just go through the other 2 trains. The one in Crestview is a kind of a different story. It's going to be a twin of this, but much, much smaller flow eventually. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but there's no major projects in the imminent future, but the RIBs are going to have to be, do you guys know what RIBs are? Rapid infiltration basins. Like y'all have a spray field. We have these large retention basins where the water percolates into the ground and goes in. Right now we're in good shape because of the drought we're in, but those are going to have to be expanded at some point in the future.
So I guess my same question is kind of for Jacobs. If, let's say in 3 years, I mean, because we never know how DC will react to Herbert Field and what their priorities may change. But what if Herbert Field decided to come to us, say we rehab the plant? Is that something that we could handle?
Scott Jernigan Jacobs out of Pensacola. We've had a cursory look at what it would take, again, round numbers like Mark was saying, 500,000 gallons now for the City of Mary Esther and 500,000 from Herbert Field. You're currently permitted at 900,000. So we have done a cursory look to see hydraulically what you can really pass, and then what upgrades you would need on the treatment side to get there. That was the study that we submitted the task order for you guys a few weeks ago, that if you opt to go forward with it, that's what we'll do there, and look and see, can you treat 1 million gallons a day with your current infrastructure, or do you have to build something else?
What was our peak at? Like when the mall was at its prime?
Josh Robinson with Jacobs O&M. That particular figure, I don't know right off the top of my head. I would have to relook. But the annual average is still roughly about the same, about 500,000 a day.
Yeah, I'm just concerned with that project starting to get motion. We're going to start adding, and if they add multifamily at some point, that could significantly change the volume that we're using.
Yes, that is true. We've brought that up as well, and I want to say that'd be something else we looked at in that task order as well for further expansion for the city. Are you still currently, do you have enough where you're at now, or would you have to upgrade again?
Okay.
So, and just to follow that, in terms of projections, we took the projection we did for your consumptive use permit a few years ago, which kind of used just a standard or a typical percentage increase and looked at, some developable area within the city limits. For the increase or for the growth projection, we looked at as part of the scope of work for the plant, evaluation. We took the proposed total sewer flow from the redevelopment of the mall, basically divided that to get a flow per acre, and then applied that to some other parcels in the city that we think could be redeveloped to kind of develop that total flow projection. So that if Herbert Field became an option, we would want to know or want to have your current flow plus a growth in there, plus Herbert Field to really have the cushion that we need to be able to tell DEP, yes, we can re-permit this facility to treat 1.1, 1.2, whatever the number is, or to be able to treat all this flow, we need to do A, B, and C.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Why would we take on Holbert Field?
That was the question, Ms.
I
Sutton.
understand. I just curious because they said they're gonna work on their plant and everything for the foreseeable future. So if they change their mind, we have to take their sewer?
No,
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 sir.
that was.
So that's just
Just a hypothetical.
Yeah,
hypothetical.
that was just
Okay.
if they decided for some
We
reason
don't have the
they didn't.
capacity.
Yeah.
You can just say,
Right.
no.
And I think that's right, if you didn't have the capacity, you could say no, or, if they said, hey, we really want to get out of the wastewater business, and if it's between the city or the county, there's an impact fee negotiation to be had that says, for us to
I'm just
take half
trying
million
to-
gallons.
To get all perceivable options that
Yeah.
could be presented at some point.
Mike Hackett, Director for Okaloosa County. I would say that if in the future something were to change, which I really don't expect it to, if it were, then they would probably go back to their original plan to come talk to us.
Yeah.
And so if you had already put in a line going to our plant, they would probably intend to bring another line to us. And so that's really not going to impact us that much, 500,000 gallons a day.
Okay.
One more thing?
Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
please.
This is a workshop.
So just about capacity, and I kind of answered your question for like the next 5 years. One of the things you got to consider is risk for the long term. There are so many regulations that the state is passing. I don't know how closely you're tracking, but for example, there's a bill from the House and the Senate that's waiting for the governor that's going to outlaw Class B biosolids in the state of Florida. And if that passes, we're okay for now because all of us haul our biosolids to Alabama. But if Alabama does what Florida does, then we're all up a creek without a paddle. And there's a significant cost we have to do to build a dryer or an incinerator or something in our plant. And if that happened to us, then we would spread that cost among all of our 35,000 customers. And it's easier to handle with a larger utility. So that's what you got to think about is long-term risk
Right.
with the regulations. There's another bill about PFAS in wastewater that we're having to deal with. And so the regulations are kind of nauseating, and that's what's driving smaller utilities in general to say we want to get out of the business to not have to deal with that.
I'd like to add a little bit to the PFAS statement. This looks like it's getting a lot of traction. What we would probably be looking at is that they would start by quarterly taking samples for PFAS in the wastewater. And nothing's going to happen for a while. The DEP is just going to study it and see what happens. But if something does change and you are talking about trying to remove PFAS from your effluent, especially before you go to a spray field, that's a whole nother ball game altogether. And this goes a little bit back to what Jared was saying. You never know what's going to come. And so that's a heavy duty project.
Thank you.
I think the biggest piece from what we're just hearing is that there are pretty significant economies of scale when it comes to wastewater treatment. Not as much with water, but with wastewater, there's pretty significant economies of scale. So I think I've only got one more slide here just to wrap up. So some of these things we've already addressed, but essentially if we continue or if we decide to rehab the plant, we're obviously on a little bit of a longer runway with the consent order. Whereas with the project of the force main, it's fairly clean in the sense that complete the project, that would at least address that part of our consent order. Um, The effluent scope, so as I mentioned, I read through the Mott McDonald study again, and it does not sound like that is replacing the entire line or rehabbing the entire line of the spray field. So there is some potential for that cost to go up once you get into actual design engineering for the rehab of the plant. The debt service, because of some of the opportunities we have, there's a pretty good chance that if we were to get another grant, that we could close kind of that gap. So looking at the cost of your operational increase for the force main plus the lower debt service, they're probably going to start to get pretty close. And again, as I mentioned, the reduced liability with the force main. The permit, having the wastewater permit is a pretty significant undertaking. And so this would change that because we would be essentially just pumping raw effluent to the county. And that's all I've got. And so certainly if you have any more questions, especially for the experts here, please ask. Please ask away because we've got a good room of folks that have experience in wastewater.
Just have one financial question. So we got to come up with $14 million, of which you have a grant already of 1.9 million.
So
So-
we have a $1 million state appropriation, and we have about 900,000 that is, it's not guaranteed, but we feel pretty good about it at this
Okay,
point.
so you need about roughly 12 million, $12.1 million.
Correct.
And what do you foresee, how are you going to get that money? It's just going to be a loan? Is that what you foresee?
So
Raising taxes? I mean, what are we looking at?
What I would foresee is additional request for state appropriation. I would foresee a request to OLDCC for the Defense Community Infrastructure Partnership. I think that's about right.
Okay.
Program, which those awards are, I believe they're up to around 15 million is the max. We wouldn't request that much, obviously. It would be a smaller grant. They don't typically give grants that large. But that's another well. I think depending on what happens with this property, there is the potential sale of the property, sale or lease of the property that would help. But again, I think the first step is really looking at the two options and which do we think is more cost-effective long-term, not necessarily honing in on the exact dollar amount that we have to come up with today, because we will have several years to get there. I would love to have that number today, but our option is either taking it to the county or rehabbing the plant.
Okay, one more question. How much
But there
credit-
is a benefit before you ask
Yeah,
the
I'm sorry,
next
go ahead.
question. There is a benefit to the rehab of the plant is
You
that
do it over time.
that can be done over time. I pray that we don't do it in 7 phases in 10 years because that's an awful lot.
Understand.
But there is a benefit to that it can be done in pieces.
Do we have credit for that kind of debt? If we were to take maybe half of that, can we get a loan for $6 million?
So at the end of the day, we do have reserves in the water and sewer fund that we can put towards it. And we do have some existing debt capacity for the water and sewer system. One thing that will help us a lot for that question specifically is, as you know, we have a neighborhood infrastructure project that's out to bid now. So we don't know what those bids will come in at. We're hoping we don't have a big surprise, but you never know in the
Right.
environment that we're working in right now.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, we have two options. We have to pick one. It would be 4 to 5 years before we're building anything with the force main to the county.
Okay. You answered my
Um,
question. Thank you.
And part of the reason for that, you didn't ask this question, but part of the reason for that is we would have to get easements from Eglin for this project.
And that may take a while.
That may take a while.
What do you think our probability of getting an easement from Eglin is? I mean, do you think it's a starter, a non-starter?
And this is dual. I think.
You can't speak for Eglin, I know, but I'm just,
And I do think that they would be receptive to it. It's just, it doesn't matter if they love the idea, it's going to take time.
oh, I understand.
So, would you agree with that?
We have obtained probably 50 miles of easements on Eglin property.
Have you?
Over the last 10 or 15 years.
Okay,
Every one we've asked for, we've gotten.
that's good.
Just taking time. We got a 12-mile easement that took about 6 years. Just to
Okay,
get
I
it.
just comparing it with that road out the gate toward 87, Eglin's saying no.
We're going down an existing corridor that's already there. It's
Okay.
not controversial.
Just add a pipe.
It's a good thing. I think it would happen. It's just going through the process.
More
Understood.
that's wetlands. It's not going to be anything that they would ever have a use for.
Right, that's kind of what I'm hinting, because they're very negative toward it. This might be a non-starter. We need the property. Thank you.
And thankfully, Mayor, we've had some of those discussions, not necessarily people that are with that office, but about these easements. And so it's not going to be a surprise. In fact, when we started this discussion 3-4 years ago, we send it to their committees to get a first look at it, to give us an idea for which routes they would be more in favor of. So we got some feedback there. The other piece that I don't know if I mentioned, but it's definitely very important, is that the reason why the cost is lower than before is because that assumption is that Okaloosa County would be helping to build most of that line. And so that's significant.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Because it was originally 30 million or 40 million?
It was almost 30 million was the
Four-
estimate.
30, right. Thank you. Any more questions?
As to DP, they're not concerned which choice we make, as long as we make a choice. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was.
I have
what was
asked that
next.
question many times and they do not want to weigh in. They want it resolved one way or the other. They may have a preference, but they're not going to put their thumbs on that scale. Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I can't speak for them either, but I have a feeling they wouldn't go on record. But I think that if they had the opportunity for you to pick one way and eliminate that spray field and its future liability, they'd probably.
And probably also the hurricane tearing up and moving it right on down the road into the
Right.
water.
You'll probably never get them to admit it or say it or
Right.
anything.
It's cleaner.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Have one more person on the line. So
oh,
Eric, I don't know if you have any comments either. I know you've got a lot of experience working with OLDCC and their grant programs.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump on. You already covered it and did a beautiful job with the acronyms, by the way. Just masterful. But yeah, it's the installation readiness program can be used exactly for studies like this. And in this case, you can use their funding for anything up to moving dirt or doing NEPA. So you can get all of the design covered essentially through this program. It's a needs-based program. It's not competitive. So as long as you've convinced Mauricio, our contact, in which we have, he just has to bring it to his bosses and convince them that it fits essentially the purpose of the law. So it's not guaranteed still. He's going to have to go through that process, but everything is in place for you to get that. I saw before you were talking about, would that funding still be available for rehab of the existing plant? Not something that we've brought up to him, but if that's a direction you decided to go, I'd be certainly happy to help talk about that with him. I would say with Hurlburt pulling out, it became a little bit trickier. We weren't sure that the money was still going to be there because it was less of a direct positive impact on the installation. But one of the things that we talked about with him is that when that easement is created, that potentially the easement becomes a little bit wider so that if one day, 10 or 15 years from now, Hurlburt does want to add their own force main out to Arbany Pritchett, that maybe they wouldn't have to go through that easement process. And so that's another way that we can kind of convince them that there is a military benefit, even if it's not immediate, that it does give Hurlburt an option in the future or make that a little bit easier for them to avoid that easement purchase process. So That's where we are on that. I would say, as Jared mentioned, that DSIP program, that community infrastructure program is available as well. That one is competitive. That one's tougher to get, but that's an option. And we're happy to help with whatever we can. I don't know if you have any questions, but that's what I have to add.
Mr. Oder, you had something?
Yeah, a couple things. Yeah, I believe the EPA is going to keep moving the needle, and I would rather try to eliminate their options as best we can. I know we can't, but I mean, they've already done that with the consent order on us and stuff. Also, I also will admit I was here during the Mott McDonald era, and my confidence level in their reports is not high at all. Too many times they brought stuff to us and oops, we made a $2.5 million error and things like this that, ouch, we've already sailed this boat and now we're stuck. So I'm not overly confident. It would be different if the Jacobs or the county guys had done it. I'd feel a lot more comfortable. I'm not a fan of Mott McDonald's. So yeah, I'm leaning more towards let's go ahead and tie into the county. I've toured that facility. I love all the backup options and all the backup. So when the next storm comes, they're more than prepared to keep it open and best we can. So that's the way I'm leaning.
Anything else? Yes, sir, go ahead.
Michael Criddle, Jacobs Engineering out of Pensacola. There's one piece of information that I think is important. I'd be derelict in my duties if I didn't point this out. Part of the same consent order that we've been discussing tonight, in addition to the Azalea project, which Jared pointed out is out for bid right now, there are 5 additional projects required by that consent order. I can list them for you. You've got the Highway 98 water line replacement, Bryn Mawr Boulevard project, Shrewsbury Neighborhood Project, Lorraine Drive Neighborhood Project, and Sleepy Hollow Neighborhood Project. So those would have to figure in somewhere with your debt service when you start thinking about it, because those are required as part of the consent order as well. Just wanted to point that out. So we all,
Sleepy Hollow?
yes, sir.
What one was that?
Rehab of its manholes and
Oh, manholes. Okay.
Well, manholes
I
and-
was thinking,
manholes and gravity line.
I was
rehab.
thinking, lift station. No, wrong place. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
And kind of along those lines too, I mean, the one thing that we do have to keep in mind is that when you're sending your wastewater to somebody else, you have an incentive to deal with the I&I problems. And so in some ways it's good because it would keep us focused on rehabbing the sewer lines. But that is something we'd have to keep in mind, is that the more that we can tighten those neighborhoods up, the better, because it will be costing us every time we're sending effluent to the county.
Is that what you wanted him to talk about? That was that last item? Did
Uh,
you have
who-
something else on
No.
the subject? Okay.
No, that's
That's
it.
what I'm asking.
That's it.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, let's move on to item 4.2, law enforcement services review. City manager? Or-
Okay, just one second. Let me get switched over to that one.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I think we're good. Thank you both for coming. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, appreciate it.
Safe.
No,
No, you're next.
you're on the hot seat.
Hmm. Oh, that's right. You're retired. You're just,
You need tissues?
okay. Hayward, can you hear us?
Hold on.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Just want to see if you were alive.
And thank you, Eric, as well. We really appreciate
Yes,
you
thank
joining
you.
us.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so the next item that we have tonight is on the review of law enforcement. And so, yes, we've got a few folks here tonight for that as well. So we have Captain Rader, who I think has been with us now for a month. So he is our new captain in charge of our contract, as well as Captain Ruiz, who is here as well, semi-retired, I guess, as we, or at least thinking about it.
On the way out.
Does the sheriff know?
Okay, so as you know, I sent the council a longer report. But the purpose of this discussion is to walk through the data we've gathered on the law enforcement arrangements, look and kind of see what the numbers that we have, what they tell us, as well as to discuss some options for moving forward. Just like with the first presentation, I am trying my best just to give you the facts. That way we've got the same information to work off of. No formal action, just as with the first presentation. So why are we here? So three things, really, to talk about the coverage. How does Mary Esther fit into the patrol structure for the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Department? What is the data that we have? What does that tell us about the crime in Mary Esther? And then what options do we have for improving our situation? And so we'll go ahead and first look at the current contract. The current contract we have is for about $321,000. That's for fiscal year 2026. We have 2 dedicated deputies. Per capita, if we're using our census number of about 4,000 population, it's about $80 per person. That cost has gone up about 47% since fiscal year 2020. I do think it's important to point out that, as we all know, costs have gone up quite a bit since COVID for everything, for all personnel. And for law enforcement, it's a little harder to find a number for Florida, but it's probably gone up 30 to 35% across the board. I think that's fairly reasonable to say. So we do receive a crossing guard. As we all know, we will not need that in a few months. We have a designated captain that serves as our point of contact. We also have the ability to cancel with 90 days notice, and we do retain the right to request replacement deputy if for some reason we're having issues. So that's kind of a high level of the contract. So this is the slide that I'd really like to focus on a little bit here. And I'm hoping that Captain Ruiz and Raider can help with this. But I think the first thing that's important to understand is just what is the baseline coverage. So we have baseline coverage provided through the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Department, and then we have our enhanced contract. And so what would be good to understand is how the patrol zones are set up in Okaloosa County. And this is one of the questions that we asked. So we contract for 2 deputies, which is 80 hours a week in total. I know we don't publish the times that they're working, but if you just do the rough math, it's about 11 hours total, right? We don't get, the 80 hours includes vacation, so if an officer takes vacation, there is not somebody that fills in for that period. But when it comes to patrols, our understanding is that the zone west of Hurlburt, which I think there's a zone for basically Hurlburt Field, but there aren't many calls there. There's like 5 a month. It's pretty small. And then zone 23, which is basically what most of us would refer to as Flarosa. And so our understanding is that in that zone, there is a patrol officer that is assigned to that area. It is a larger area than Mary Esther, whereas in Mary Esther, when we're on those off-contract hours, the service is based on calls. There isn't an officer necessarily designated to this area. Mary Esther is small, so I don't know that there's any expectation that we would have somebody designated just for our 1.5 square miles. But I do think that would be good to get kind of some clarity on how that works. So I don't know if Captain Rader or Ruiz, if that's something that you can kind of help clarify. The other piece of it, which I'll be entirely honest about, is I've never worked in law enforcement. So, you know, when we think of patrols and trying to compare our area to somewhere else, there may be some other reason for why it is set up that way. And so really just want to get a better understanding.
Sure. I'll touch back on a little of the history. I've actually spoken to a couple of former officers with the Mary Esther Department of Public Safety. They're employed with us, and they were officers here back in the 90s and up to 2000, I believe, when the police department disbanded. Back then, you had 7 full-time officers, from the chief on down to the newest officer. And they only worked from 7 in the morning until 11 in the evening, 11 at night. So it was uncovered. They had one officer on call for traffic crashes only. And that was, I believe he said, a little over $300,000 budget. There's been about a 90% rate of inflation since that date. Rather large. So currently, Mary Esther is called Sheriff's Office Zone 21, the City of Mary Esther. Per the contract and what was agreed upon years ago, it's staffed by 2 deputies. It is not backfilled when they're on leave, when they're sick, when they're in training, when they're in court. So they're only on staff 12 hours a day. It's actually closer to 12 than 11. So they're only staffed 50%. And when they're out for one of those reasons that I mentioned, it's not backfilled by anyone else. When calls for service come out, then another zone is dispatched. If it's priority, usually the closest person who's not on a high priority call themselves. What was your specific question on this one, sir?
Real quick, before, for the record, your name and title.
Captain Michael Rader with the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So just trying to understand, so the way that I understand it today is that when we don't have our contract deputies in place, that after that, let's say it's 9 p.m. After 9 p.m., there isn't one patrol deputy that is essentially patrolling Mary Esther and part of Fort Walton Beach.
Correct. So the contract hours designated in language,
Mm-hmm.
it's certain hours, certain manning, and it's only 50% of the time that's allocated. So 50% it's uncovered. So as an incorporated city, that was a decision that the decision makers made back then for the staffing. That was the level of service they were willing to pay for. So outside of the contract hours, when a call for service comes out, it's the closest deputy who's not on a priority call that takes it. Now, I think we had a conversation previously, whether it's actively patrolled. We have folks traversing through, coming down Hollywood, Mary Esther, 98 all the time. Some of them are currently working, some are off, some are going to the gym, some are going to train, some are going to court. So there's always a presence coming through the city. But to say that someone is there actively patrolling, they're not prohibited from Mary Esther outside the contract hours, but it's not emphasized. They've got so many other duties that they're delegated to do for the unincorporated areas.
So how would, like, in unincorporated Fort Walton Beach, how would that compare, I guess, to Mary Esther?
In regards to
like, do you have, for every zone, do you have a deputy that's basically assigned to that area that is patrolling?
Yes, every unincorporated area. And sometimes we have a single deputy for 3 zones, depending on the geographic size and the population of the area.
I think that was what, at least speaking for myself, that's what I was trying to understand, was that do we have the same sort of structure? If Mary Esther didn't have a contract, would we still have an officer covering, say, our zone and the adjacent zone in unincorporated Fort Walton Beach or Florosa?
Yes, but without the enhanced services. So because the 2 we have right now have relationships with a lot of the commercial business owners, a lot of residents. They know people, they know when things are out of whack. And we discuss statistics also, you see a trending down of property crimes and violent crimes. Well, that could be due to a multitude of things. A lot of the mall closing is one of them. So the calls for service for property crimes goes down there.
But who's to say that the presence and the actions and the relationships that our contract deputies have built haven't also driven the crime down? Because the number one reducer of crime rates is proactive policing and engagement in the community. So as we have those folks out there, it's hard to prove a negative. So as they're out there, just their presence alone, their interactions, hopefully is driving crime down in the area or pushing it away from the area at least.
I think there's a question. I think.
Yeah, so you talk about the certain property crimes that they've definitely gone down. I know with spring and break and summer, the kids sometimes get out of school and they tend to do, crime of opportunity type situations.
It's known.
But with the mall, with the construction going on, that has kind of shifted some of those crimes to a particular hotel in our city limits. The prostitution and the drug deals that are going on over there is quite high in the evening, when we don't have the enhanced services.
Attention is being paid to certain areas without divulging anything confidential.
Correct.
But I'm aware of what you're speaking, and stuff is being addressed outside of contract.
Yeah, there's a number of even residences that I've noticed where drug activity has increased, with obviously without naming streets, and because I don't know what investigations y'all have going on and don't want to mess anything up, but obviously we're going to always have crime, people are going to do things, and you can't always be everywhere. But I think the concern that I have is, let's say that we did not have a contract for enhanced services during the day. And yes, I do agree that that does provide a good benefit to have that presence there, because obviously I'm not going to commit a crime in front of a deputy sitting right there. I mean, well, I may not, but but like Florosa, I do agree with our city manager that I don't think that we necessarily need to be in a zone by ourselves, but included in a adjacent zone, like whether it's part of the Lovejoy zone, because I've ridden with one of the deputies in that zone. And this is kind of like a black hole in the evening, unless they get a call. But the problem is, for some reason, we're in an environment where people don't want to call the sheriff's department for whatever reason. They don't want to get involved, or they're scared of law enforcement, or whatever their personal reasons are. They just don't want to get involved. So a lot of times, and I appreciate that y'all are always speaking about, if you see something, say something. And I hand out your non-emergency number all the time. I encourage our citizens to call. But at the same time, you can't force them to. So being around it in the evening hours when you do have some of the people that are trying to commit crime, that presence does go a long way. Even if you're not actually doing anything, it does deter crime. And we've got a number of homeless problems because of the closed businesses now.
I agree, and that's what I don't like having two contract. I would like a 4 minimum, so we have around the clock coverage. But just those two only provides for 50% scheduled coverage. So we are going to have those gaps, and we try to take advantage of our intelligence-led policing data that show us the hours of activity of certain offenses. So we try not to look at when it's reported, but when it occurred. And we try to take advantage, because we've only got 50% of time to play with, of how we schedule our guys.
I mean, yeah, you do have 50% of the time, but I guess I'm confused, because I know all of us have to answer to citizens' calls about, budgets, and, and y'all do too, and I appreciate that. And, but at the same time, I've got citizens going, well, why am I paying Okaloosa taxes that go towards the sheriff's department? Because they're still paying the same amount of taxes that they do in Florosa. And then we're paying additional city taxes, and the city is providing additional enhanced services. But I guess I'm confused as what that enhancement is, other than the fact we just have a dedicated deputy. Why is Florosa any different from what we are?
So Florosa is 2.5 square miles. They have double your population. 1.5 square miles, I believe, is Mary Esther.
Yes.
4,000 residents. Call volume is pretty much the same. The dedicated deputies here drive down your response times. I think in the month of February, I think the stats I sent you, we had 172 or 344, priority one calls that were responded to within less than 6 minutes. And that's because we had a body in the zone. And the time slots we have our guys working right now is pretty much even with daytime calls and nighttime calls. So we're taking advantage of that, trying to focus them into more prime times for offenses that really need to be dealt with in a timely manner.
Go ahead. No,
I know you weren't
Oh, I'm
here
sorry.
prior to the contracts, but do you know what our call time was prior to having enhanced law enforcement?
I don't have those facts with me now, but I can get back to you.
Okay, thanks.
Carter? One of the challenges with the understanding of what, I know we use the word enhanced, I prefer the word presence. We're paying for a presence that we not normally would have. Now, that presence, as you said, you can't prove a negative. So, but the retail that has declined in our city is poised to change. We don't know what that change is because this current contract, there was a shortfall in our budget that's really driving this conversation because I think it's imperative for all of us to have basically the same understanding of what we're asking of the contract and what we can pay for.
And I believe it would be, if the contract went away for a period of time, I think you'd be playing catch up when that big box store comes in.
Yeah, I read it, what we did in 18, I don't want to go, I don't think, it's always easy to look back at the past and say we should have, could have, would have done. But the idea that we cancel the contract and bringing it back, we got 4 deputies for a price. We brought the contract back. We got the same price, 2 deputies. And it was the wisdom at the time that the hours and the needs meet. That was all that data driven is what we have today. But one of the things about police presence, if the national average is 1 deputy per 1,000, we should have 4 deputies. If that national average of having 1.2 deputies for every 1,000 of the population. So and I don't know how accurate that is. That's what I was told.
Latest I heard was 2.4 per thousand in the nation.
Well, it's 2.4. That means 8 deputies.
And right now we're operating at 0.5 per thousand.
So that in itself creates a problem for us. And I don't know if Heather can speak to this, but if we're going to meet the shortfall of 321,000, if we just kept the current contract and tried to massage it to get as much of a bang of a buck for it I don't know if the millage rate could eat much of that 321,000 because we're already high to start with. But the citizens that I've talked to, they want their service. They don't want to go away. We don't know what the retail forecast will be in 5 years. We have competing for resources with other projects. One of the things I think, if we could all have the basic understanding of what that presence looks like, and we don't have that many streets. We got over 550 businesses. And I talked to Captain Riz. We had many discussions about calls for service. That's not a good data point. When the data, because for me, I'd rather have more deputy presence at night when I feel I'm most vulnerable, but the data doesn't seem to support that. So how do we move forward with what we have and be able to afford what we have? The idea of what the service that we receive is any way that the deputies that we do have, since it's costing us 47% more for the same presence, is anything they can do to tighten up on the service? I mean, are we getting the best possible service that we are with the current configuration?
What additional services you're asking for that's not provided?
No, I'm saying, well, their proactivity is what I'm asking. Is there any other proactivity they could do for the amount of money that we're paying for?
Specifically, what activity you're asking for?
The
Other than the presence, the traffic stops, security checks, the
time
watch
frame,
orders.
the time, you're talking about the times there?
The times that they're working,
Yeah.
is there anything that,
Oh, you're asking for adjustment of the shifts?
no,
Or
they're, well, what does community policing look like in your mind?
so community policing, overarching theme of engagement, and we are not here to take over a community. We're here to make relationships, help solve problems, and help citizens solve their own problems. And it's not a invading army. We are out there, we are part of the community. We are
Okay.
people serving people.
So could that include stopping and talking to citizens versus just riding through the neighborhood? I know that at one point in time, guys would stop, play a little basketball with the children. I mean, things that, I can't say more present because you only have so many hours a day, but that,
Community relations.
yes, because how many deputies, well, how often do they actually have conversations with the current businesses that we have? Or
It should be on a regular basis. If
Oh.
you're looking for specific numbers, I can probably.
And I'm not looking for them to have a quota of 5 businesses. That's not what I'm driving at.
And a lot of times throughout my travels across the county, I go in and I talk to a shop owner for a few minutes. I'm not logging that in our
Right.
system. So it's not being captured data, but that's just rapport I'm building. I'm getting to learn them. I'm learning their business and they're getting to know me. If they have a problem, they've got someone they can put a name to a face. So not all of that is captured in the data we can pull back.
Exactly.
But your business owners and your residents, I'm sure they recognize our two guys.
Okay.
Susan, you got something? Barney?
No, I'm just,
Quiet people?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, I've been here the longest, next to you, the mayor, that is. You've been here longer than I have been. Yeah, why Mary Esther decided to do away with their police department, because when I first moved here, we had a police department. I won't go into great detail, but I went and asked 4 of the 5 people who were sitting on council. Illogical answer they gave me, which doesn't matter. It's past history.
Yes, sir.
In reference to stopping and playing basketball, that happened before. And several people called and said, no, we need that that deputy out driving around. We don't need him playing with the high school kids at the local basketball. So either way, we do too much or we do too little, kind of like we did with code. We have too much code, we don't have enough code. Same with the sheriff.
Never
We,
gonna make
you
everyone
know,
happy.
they're parked over there behind the movie theater. Well, maybe they're investigating. So, I mean, what, maybe he's taking a lunch. I mean, come on. I mean, I trust you to do your job. And of course, you're never going to make everybody happy. I have certain businesses that I've worked with that, hey, homeless guys, okay, but they, yeah, appreciate you guys coming around, stuff like that. So it's a fine line. It really is. My concern with all this, as always, is the checkbook. I mean, that's why before that 1 year, we couldn't afford it anymore. We said, you know, and it was a gamble that, and a comment was made and was on the Okaloosa County Board of Commissioners that, oh, they'll never walk away. Really? Guess what? We did. And from the report we got a year later, it went up 0.001. Because you still have to call. If we call 911, somebody shows up.
We're coming.
Just this last week, I drove by our library. 2 Fort Walton Beach police officers with had somebody pulled over. Granted, it wasn't you guys, but again, I don't care. If I call 911, it can be the Florida Marine Patrol. As long as the Leo law enforcement, I don't care who shows up. So yeah, I mean, and again, we can't afford to put one on every street corner. We don't want it to be ICE coming in here. I think they're getting a bad rap anyway. But I mean, so yeah, it's a fine line. It really is. My concern, like I say, it's 6.6 each year. And when my Social Security only goes up 3%.
We've
Yeah.
got to stay competitive with the market.
Right.
If
I
we
understand.
don't bring our starting pay up, we will lose folks left and right. We've got competitors on each side, major one to
Yep.
the east of us. And when their starting pay goes up above ours, we lose folks religiously. And we bump ours back up, people come right back.
And that's what happened with our fire department. We did the same thing. And all of a sudden they were getting scalped.
And
Yes.
it's a profession that not a whole lot of folks are going out and seeking.
Right.
So when we have good candidates who've got the training, they've got a good background, we want them. So if we've got to pay to get them, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, basically.
Well, and the other thing that's, as we all know, this property tax issue thing coming up. It's going to be interesting come November, what's on the ballot and what goes through. I'm concerned because like I say, I keep telling everybody I talk to, and when I was out campaigning, I said, you don't want to do this because that's education and public safety. That's what that property tax pays for. And if you do away with it, we're going to have to shift it because nobody's going to want, I want to call 911. I want somebody to answer. I don't want some AI. Yeah, we'll be there in 3 days. No. You know, now granted, if it's a barking dog, take 3 days. I don't care. But if it's shots fired, although it scares me because we had those 11 9mm casings over there and not single phone call to you guys. Not a single call. So yeah, my concern is our citizens don't care.
There's a lot of apathy and
Yep.
diffusion of responsibility, I think. It is. Someone else will call, someone else will,
Right.
and no one does.
That's all I have. Thank you.
So Captain Rader, see, and the point of I think like even Mr. Carter was saying was at night, the numbers, I don't think are an accurate representation of what actually goes on in the city because people don't call. It's, I don't know that there's anything that y'all are able to do to change that behavior. I mean, other than just by constantly educating the public. But at the same time, I don't believe that the numbers during the daytime are truly accurate compared to the nighttime because there's a lot of stuff that goes bump in the night that people don't see. You know,
I agree. We can only go on what we know.
Right,
If it's not reported
exactly.
to us, we
You-
don't observe it. We have no
but
idea.
when you're not in the area, you obviously are not seeing. And so people are not calling because a lot of times people are sleeping in those hours.
So that presence and that around the clock presence that I would love to
Right.
have.
But what I'm saying is why do we have to pay for additional service what are our taxes going to for Okaloosa County is what I guess I'm getting at.
So the sheriff has multiple responsibilities. Courthouse civil process, suppress riots, ex officio timber agent, all of those things in chapter 30. But an incorporated city that collects taxes from its citizens, one of the top things in all the surveys is they want public safety and infrastructure, and in schools. They want the government to look out for them to keep them safe and allow them to live their lives. So almost every survey that you'll look at in the last 20 years, public safety is near the top of the list, if not at the top.
Nope, finish, go ahead. No, I was just saying, if that's the case, then why isn't every city or unincorporated assigned officers via the county?
So if it's an incorporated city, they're collecting taxes for enhanced services. The city's supposed to be footing the bill for the enhanced services. That way, all the county residents aren't subsidizing a city, because if we went by some of the questions that were asked previous,
Then why are we paying
then
county?
the city of Fort Walton, the Fort Walton Beach Police Department wouldn't exist. They said, let the sheriff do it.
Right,
But can I not get,
but we're paying county taxes that go towards.
so can I get basic service at night?
And I think if I could just kind of add here or chime in here, and because we may not get that answer necessarily tonight, but I think one of the challenges and what I'm hearing is that if, for simplicity, if every 5 square mile area had an officer that was designated for patrols, and then we added 2 officers, we could clearly say to the public, this is your enhanced service, right? But if we don't have, if we're not a part of a patrol zone during those off-contract hours, I think that's where it becomes a challenge, is how do we have a conversation with, a resident about the enhanced service when the zone next to us gets that from the same taxes that we all pay. I think that's the challenge. I think that would make it kind of easier to have that discussion about enhanced service. And so I don't know that we necessarily will get that answer tonight, but that was definitely one of the questions for council is, how much of that, is a priority for us to continue to have that discussion with the sheriff's department.
Okay. Well, and in the end, whatever is decided, the citizens are going to come back to the city and ask, why don't we have the coverage that we need for law enforcement?
I just, one real quick question, just piggyback on what he said. If we did away with the contract and did away with the enhanced services, would we, and we all pay Oklahoma County taxes, same as much as people in Florala, would they have more police service than us then?
Which area? I'm sorry.
Florosa,
Florosa?
yeah.
The way I'm looking at it and trying to project for all avenues, it would probably be the same deputy answering calls in Florosa would be answering calls here.
Would be the same.
And the closest point from that zone to the city limits is 2 miles. The farthest zone is 7 miles.
Okay.
So obviously if it's priority 1 call.
Longer time.
Whoever's closest coming, but response
I
time.
understand.
Yeah, traffic crashes, you can expect an hour plus response from FHP. The
that's
parade
FHP.
also we discussed wouldn't be there, it'd be on roll call, which is an off-duty deputy program.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just saying, so we would have the same services as unincorporated? Because it was told to us, I don't know, not too long ago, that the unincorporated areas have better, or for the money that they spend for the county, they have better police services because the cities like Fort Walton Beach have their own police department, or we have enhanced law enforcement, or Destin has enhanced law enforcement. So therefore, they're paying for it. And if you don't pay for it, you're going to get a higher level than if the the incorporated areas weren't paying for it. So like I say, back to my original thing, if we cancel our contract, you're telling me we would have this, we would drop down like Cinco Bayou did to the same services that everybody else in the county would have that are not paying for enhanced law enforcement. We wouldn't be less.
Correct. And now, I don't want to be confusion, outside of the contract hours, there's still presence. There's still folks traveling through. It's not an off limits area. It's just those enhanced service with a focus on the city of Mary Esther is not there.
Because we're, right, because we would be,
But outside the contract areas, folks are still traversing, they're still walking their cases, and it takes them into Mary Esther sometimes. So you're still getting the services, there's still the full investigations. You've got all of our resources at your beck and call with the enhanced services. But without the contract, it's not as a designated
right.
concentrated.
We wouldn't have a
entity.
name to call. We wouldn't have, I see what you're saying. We wouldn't have somebody we could hold accountable because we're paying the money for that. We would have just, we're going to be there when we can be there. And if it's a
And you
non-emergency,
have the
good
dedicated
luck.
presence that you do under the contract.
Okay. Yeah,
That answers
I
the question.
got the
Okay.
feeling. Thank you.
My thing is like the basic coverage like that, like Forosa gets, you know, because they don't have an enhanced contract because it's unincorporated. Is like for our city limits, like I'd like to be added into whatever like maybe Lovejoy district is. I don't remember what that district number is. I mean,
17.
okay, so like I'm not necessarily worried about deputies going through every street. Like you know, Deputy Chapman goes through the neighborhoods very well. I've personally done a ride along with him. He's he's sharp. He pays attention to details. And a lot of our citizens recognize him and they see him going through the neighborhoods, especially during the day. And they feel good because a lot of their kids, you know, are out playing. So that's a great thing to have for him. And I'm not necessarily in favor of getting rid of the enhanced contract, but I do think having a deputy that just randomly, kind of how they randomly drive down Lovejoy at night, you know, we've got a couple of main business areas where people like to congregate at night and do some illegal things.
Chad Ruiz, Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office. Doing good, Dylan? Okay. I only feel the need to interject only because I've had a personal relationship at one time in conversations with you over time. So I think I can give some context to things. When you guys are referring to having that extra presence at night after contract hours or whatever term we want to use, Councilman Sutton, you rode with Deputy Register and that adjoining zone, the 17 zone, right? And one of the times when I talked to you afterwards, one of the things of your observations was you guys didn't ever make it down into the city, right? But it wasn't because he wasn't doing anything. He was very busy, was he not? Was it admin? Was it dealing with customers? Was it dealing with things? And he was a sharp deputy. He was our deputy of the year. I mean, he was the best we have to offer when it comes to deputies. Not lazy, not slacking, not, shirking his duties. You rode with basically the finest that we had. Unbeknownst to us at the time that you were going to get put with him. And I think that the way Captain Rader's putting it to a lot of the way, it's not that they're forbidden to come into the city. It's not like we're like, it's forbidden and we're never going in there. They have responsibilities in the zones of assignments they have in the unincorporated parts that if they have the time, they'd be encouraged to come and do. They may not have the time to do it and it would be part of the normal responsibilities. When he's talking about the Florosa unit out there in our zone 23, if you ever gotten in your car from here and driven to the county line, especially any traffic, it takes a minute, right?
Yeah.
So if you're relying on a deputy without a contract to come here to answer a call for service on a non-priority to come over for a retail theft that already occurred, it may take them some extended period of time to get over here, right? So I think there's a lot of conversation about the term enhanced services and what that means. And if we don't pay for it, what do we get? Yes, you pay Okaloosa taxes. I'm not a tax expert. I don't get into the nitty gritty of the budgets of the county, everything else, but you're paying for the overall services of the county when you do that. Specifically to law enforcement, like he mentioned, you have the courthouses that you're paying for in your taxes, right? You have all the services that come in with law enforcement across the county as a county resident that you're paying for that you may or may not utilize. When you get into enhanced services, a city exists to provide enhanced services across all areas for their citizens. Because otherwise, if you guys weren't here and he wasn't here and Kelvin wasn't here and everybody wasn't here, then you would rely on the county for your water, your sewer, for your all your garbage pickup. You would simply be run by the city, by the way they're incorporated this, right? So we're all here filling a role for enhanced services. It's just a matter about how it's paid for. And at the end of the day, I think the gist of all of it is, can we work with you better to find out what is you exactly want and need, whether it's more traffic enforcement and getting out and showing more period, maybe it's adjusting our hours from time to time to give you a bit of better feeling of maybe moving later in the night or early in the morning to adjust issues the way that we did with, say, school zones and getting out there working in that, or working it late if we have a burglary problem, right? Yeah, we can absolutely do that. We can work those issues with you. At the end of the day, this comes down to, I think, and I don't want to speak for all of you, I think you all are happy with our services overall. You'd like to maybe see a couple tweaks here, but the bottom line, it's the checkbook. It's writing that check to pay for it when you guys are obviously facing some serious financial difficulties going on in the city. You've got to make choices. And at the end of the day, I think it's important to stress that the sheriff is not making a profit off of this contract. This is the cost of what it takes us to operate. Okay, that's always a hard pill for people to swallow when they look at the numbers and they see what it costs. But that's what, like he was explaining, that's what it costs to keep a qualified deputy in service working. We don't do that, we're not competitive, we lose them, then we start having more problems. And to address some of the concerns of the unincorporated, if you get into the legal aspect, and I don't want to, jump into Hayward's world as far as legal, because I'm not an attorney, but you start getting into the aspects of whether or not how you provide services and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, right? And I'm not here to dictate that. I'm not here to sell our services to you one way or the other. It's simply to give you the facts of how we do business, what it costs to do that, and give you guys the option to make the decision if you're going to do it or not. Kevin Rader's phenomenal. We worked together for long years. He's going to have that same relationship with you guys. Just give him a little bit of time. If you have concerns or problems or questions about how the deputies are doing something, we'll tell you if we can do it or if we can't do it. I know one of your big concerns is traffic enforcement. You want to see more tickets, right? I can tell you we can do more traffic enforcement, but I'm not going to guarantee you more tickets per se, right? Because it's not necessarily the answer to all the questions. There's certain things, if you want more community involvement, that's an easy thing. We can direct our deputies to get out and do more. I feel like they're doing a pretty good job about it myself. When you go around and you mentioned Deputy Chapman, he's a fixture. He's been here for years. He knows everybody. I mean, he goes around and knows the people, and they know that, again, when the people aren't where they're supposed to be and where they are supposed to be, and he knows the employees of the gas stations and everything else. He developed a relationship so much with the target loss prevention officer that we hired him. That was the easiest way to stop all the calls over there, was just bring him in the fold and hire him on. Now he works for us. So at the end of the day, we're very sensitive to the financial cost of dealing with all this, and we understand the citizens want the services. It's like everybody wants it, but they don't understand the cost of how to pay for it.
Well, and
Otis talks about the ad valorem taxes. We're very concerned and paying attention to that as well. So I just felt the need to get up and kind of give some clarification based on, I know the wants and needs and desires from talking to a lot of guys over the area and your concerns and what you hear from your citizens.
well, in doing a daytime ride along and a nighttime ride along,
Very different.
very, very different.
People act differently at night.
Very different. Deputy Register and I did have a couple of unique situations too that we had to deal with. But it's very different. And, and he is definitely, I was very surprised by him. I wasn't sure what to think. And I was very surprised at what a chameleon he could be with different aspects of people that he encountered. I mean, he would have a complete personality with one individual and then another personality with a different individual. But he handled it with, professionalism, and
we wear a lot of hats when we're dealing with people.
you do. And I get that. And so that benefit is wonderful. But like I said, that nighttime, I just don't think our calls paint a true picture at night of what's going on in our city.
Agreed.
And riding with Deputy Register, like, we approach things and had situations come up that were not calls. It was due to him seeing it.
Getting out and being proactive.
Yeah.
And to address, you mentioned earlier about criminal activity occurring at night in local hotels or in drug houses. It's also important for you guys to know that if we don't have somebody assigned, say at overnight hours, and we're not actively patrolling, we still work cases within the city limits. A couple of the ones that, again, without getting sensitive, we've got quite a few. Targeting areas. If we know there's a problem, so the sheriff's still obligated to make sure that crime is suppressed and taken care of, and we respond to calls, right? So in some of those instances, I know from talking to Captain Rader, some others, we conducted operations that we don't publicize to you or to the media or anybody else. We make a lot of arrests. We do a lot of traffic stops. We do a lot of narcotics related activity. If our if our drug task force is working tips and working things in your neighborhood, I'm not going to come tell you, hey, that drug house, don't worry, we're taking care of it. That's not it's sensitive information, right? But we work a lot of those cases and work a lot of those things that are outside. It's more in that overarching tax that you pay for the county and versus the contract. So there's a lot of things that are there that are not talked about, the services that you get as a citizen of Okaloosa County that are not necessarily tied to the contract per se.
I think we're just a city in transition right now. We're going to have one budget wise, but we also have, such vacancies in our business aspect with, the mall and the school property. And we've got a lot of wooded areas and other large vacant lots that tend to concern people in the evening.
Sure.
So I think that's one of the big aspects we're really worried about.
And like I said, we can work with you guys on areas of concern. I know when you guys call me and say we have XYZ going on over at this park or in the mall parking lot or wherever the case may be, I think we do a fairly good job of addressing those issues. And then we kind of have to slide back into our normal routines that we begin because we have everywhere we slide and we're not during a certain time of day. Well, that's when problems start happening over there, right? The school zone in the morning is definitely going to be affected in the level of traffic that's coming through there. If the city attempts to do any, whether it's, I know you guys have talked about flock cameras and road light cameras and all these different things just to help mitigate and that sort of thing. That'll be something that happens down the line, but you're right. You are a city in transition and the mall property and the possible development that's going to go on there won't be realized for several years out. What do you do in the meantime until you're able to capitalize on those property taxes and everything that's going to help you? So I don't sympathize, or I sympathize with your positions for sure. But I just want to make sure we have a clear picture of what the sheriff is obligated to do and what he's not and what he's able to do and what he can't, because he's only got so many employees, right? It'd be great. He'd love to put 5 deputies per square foot, and have everybody protected well, but that's not realistic and not practical based on what we have available. And without giving away like too much, I've talked to the city manager about it. Yes, so the entire county is divided into zones and districts. So it's all covered in one way or another as far as our ability to assign someone to or not. But at the end of the day, you might have one deputy covering 2 or 3 of those designated zones because of limited manpower or whatever have you. So it's important, even though we have those zones and there's deputies assigned to them, when people don't show up to work, when they're out on FMLA, when they're sick, when we're short, we just have one person covering a larger square area. So.
I have some final questions. The idea of us funding, the optics is that the council, the city, provides services, and one of them is public safety. And when we tell a citizen that the county taxes are providing A service and then the city's providing B service, it would help me as a councilman in selling that to them, because some things have not changed. A lot of people still want more for less. So that probably will never change. But when it comes to providing a service to our citizens, wherever the county sheriff's office can affect reviews and redirect of efficiencies, that would help. Because if we got to find the money from somewhere if we're going to keep the service. And I haven't talked to a citizen who says, I don't want the service. Everyone I've talked to is saying that they want to keep the service. And one was very adamant that he would pay extra taxes for it. So I don't know if that's going to be a possibility, because it takes more than one person to set policy, but as far as raising taxes. But the idea of selling that to our constituents, that we're paying for a presence, and the presence can modify as far as when and where based upon needs. But the idea of what makes a city of some unique qualities, and one of them is providing public safety. So if our basic tax is doing this, and then our city taxes are doing this, I would like to be able to look a citizen in the eye and say that we're doing the best possible job, and so is the sheriff's office in providing that service. They're giving us the best bang for our buck. When I saw 47%, because I saw the difference, but if we still have 2 deputies and it's 47% more, how do I sell that to the constituency? How do I say, yeah, everything costs more? Well, that's true, but not everything costs 47% more, and
the going market rate, we've got to keep up.
so, and I understand the price of gas affects you guys. We don't see a change in our taxes, but you eat that cost.
Insurance costs, fuel, vehicles. We all saw that with COVID. Everything went through the roof, and the last 6 years have not been kind to the wallet.
So I want to give them reasons to keep the service versus reasons why we should not. and I'm asking for your help in doing so.
Yes, sir.
So you all have a copy of this, so I won't spend too much time, but I got a few more things to cover real quick, and then we'll get kind of to the end, and it can hopefully get maybe a little bit of direction for where we go from here. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that back up. Again, you've all seen it. Um, get to the right one now. So some of the good news, and I want to first say before I even get into these numbers that this is call data, and there was a lot of data that we received. And so what I was really trying to do is to try to find those trends, right? This is not data that you can compare with for Walton Beach or that you can compare with Crestview. And the reason for that is because these are simply calls for service. These are not all confirmed crimes, right? And so,
Can I touch on that real quick?
yes, please do.
So the NIBRS issue we spoke about.
Uh-huh. What does NIBR stand for?
It's a
Tell us
national-
all.
National Incident-Based Reporting System. So it's different from UCR because it captures all the crimes in an event rather than the greatest one. So the FBI went to it and has encouraged locals to do it years ago. Florida's finally on board. Fibers, Florida Incident-Based, same thing. So we are months away from getting that system hopefully live and accurate. So when we talked about getting it, I didn't have a time frame. I have one now. So hopefully a few months down the road. So when we have it, we can provide it.
That would be awesome. And so the real benefit to that is then you can take that data, find a comparable city, and basically benchmark us against them to see how well we're doing, what crime looks like. This data that we have, like I said, they're calls, so you can see trends within Mary Esther, but beyond that, it's kind of hard to extrapolate out. What you can see pretty clearly is that property crime calls are going down. Now, we could go over each one of the calls there. I'm willing to suspect a lot of it has to do with we have less businesses because the mall has been closing stores. The good news is that when it comes to violent crime, we do have a fairly low number of calls. It's not zero, but thankfully that level is still fairly low. As we kind of move on, the priority one response. So this is some information that Captain Rader had provided, which was that our contract deputies handle about 40% of our priority one calls, and the non-contract deputies handle about 60% of calls. There's been a push for a little more traffic enforcement over the last few months, so you can see that in these numbers on the right. 278 stops. You can see the breakdown of that, and we'll talk about here in a minute about some additional options for traffic enforcement. But the bottom line of all this is that crime-related calls, not necessarily crimes, but has been trending down. So options, we've talked about this a lot, but again, this isn't advocating one or the other. It's just showing essentially what each one, what is available. And so I'll move on from this one. Some of the supplemental things that we could do, it's been mentioned, roll call. So that's a service through the sheriff's department. It doesn't have to be a municipality. It can be an organization, a business, but there is the ability to hire off-duty officers for additional service. So potentially, if we wanted more service on 98, if we're not Panama City Beach, but if we were, there are certain times of the year where we may want to hire more officers to help out. And so that's an option that is available, and you have all the details of that in the longer report. The LPR cameras, license plate readers, that is an asset that can help solve crimes. And so if we wanted to, we could look at adding some of those. Code compliance, this is simply as a deterrent. I'm not at all suggesting that our code compliance officer act as a law enforcement officer, but essentially marking the vehicle so that it resembles more of a community service officer. I know one of the things that folks have joked about is we have one of our city vehicles, and whenever we go to conferences, nobody ever passes me. And it's because it looks like an official, it's an official government vehicle. It also helps that it's a Durango. And so it's the idea of deterrence, but really nothing more than that. But when you're driving around doing your code compliance patrols, you know, it is a presence, right? Park security cameras. So, and these are all things that are, whether you have a contract, you don't have a contract, whether you add officers or not, these are all things that are available to us. But park security cameras. So that is something we could look into doing in our parks. We would absolutely need a policy for how that is managed.
Do we have any in our Oak Tree Park at all, the trails at this time?
No.
So,
The one thing though that I could, if I could real quickly, is that it is important, I think, that if we were to do something like that, that we work with the sheriff's department to make sure that it's a system that they have access to, and that it meets the grade that they need. I've worked in cities where we've had cameras in parks, and we have had a number of opportunities where there were alleged crimes and the footage was pulled for the sheriff's department. And so those are all options, again, that could help with how we address public safety. But certainly with the security cameras, we would want to make sure that we spend time on that policy to make sure that we balance some of the other privacy issues.
and I did want to say something to Captain Radar. I know that our code enforcement, Calvin Cherry, works hand in hand with the sheriff's department, with our businesses to make sure that they have blanket trespasses to allow y'all to be able to kick people off of vacant properties. And I do appreciate that great working relationship that they seem to have formed. And I do think that's valuable for our city. I do like the idea of like updating, the code compliance vehicle. And maybe that's something that y'all could consult on to like the best type of upgrades that,
Just caution against making it a target because of law enforcement ambushes are a thing in Florida along the East Coast. So I'd caution making it too much like a cop car.
Mhm.
So you don't want to make your employee a target who can't defend themselves.
well, and that's why I was gonna say, maybe you can help advise the best way to do that to where it's still a presence in the community, but not necessarily, I mean, well, he's code enforcement, he's a target anyway, because nobody likes to get a violation, but,
No offense.
yeah, but, I mean, it's,
He could just smile a lot and put his
yeah. I mean, it's, no one likes getting a ticket. I mean, whether it's a sheriff deputy or a code compliance officer, I mean, but, and like Jared was saying, yeah, the security cameras in our parks would solve some of the issues that we're seeing at night.
We've got a real-time crime center and they've got technology to tie into that stuff so we can hook you up with the right people to
Right.
make sure you're getting the right equipment.
Yeah, so, the city manager can work with y'all on, options and what the best camera systems are out there that integrate with you.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
This is the last one. So this is just basically the list of questions for council. You can provide direction tonight. You don't have to. We can have the discussion at a later date. But the four items, the zone assignment, so we've talked about this a lot, but whether it means we're part of a zone that's 5 square miles or 10 square miles, but the ability to be a part of a larger zone when we don't have contract deputies here in Mary Esther. Contract, so any changes to the contract that you feel we need to discuss. Now, the supplemental tools we just discussed, so whether that means we're looking at deputies for additional traffic control or neighborhood patrols during certain times of the year, and then the code compliance and marking the vehicle. And so that's all I have, and happy to answer any questions you might have, or Captain Rader, you have any additional comments?
Would you mind pulling up that PowerPoint?
Yeah.
To give you a little bit of context and comparison for agencies serving like-sized communities in Florida. You got the controller?
Yes, sir. So it's the down button.
Thank you. So the blue, light blue, of course, is Mary Esther. And this is zone 23 that you're talking about. So you can see the gap between the two zones. Right now provided, you've got 2 dedicated units. You've got me, you've got patrol supervisors, which is 2 lieutenants, 4 sergeants, 4 corporals. Of crossing guards, traffic control for Veterans Day parade and monthly stat reports. Those are at no cost. You're paying for the 2 deputies and a small support allocation. So we've already discussed the average call for service, $56 per call. We got a Niceville, they're at 152 per call with a budget of 4.5 million and 32 full-time officers. Valparaiso, which is more like size because they've got almost 5,000 population there, a little higher calls for service, but they have 14 full-time officers and almost a $2 million budget at $221 per call. That's the one I wanted to emphasize, that you're getting your bang for the buck.
The only thing I would add to that, because I know there's always the question of, well, how can they afford that?
Yeah.
Their fire service is handled very differently than ours.
Well, didn't they just go to
Niceville?
consolidated, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get rid of our fire, we could have better
We already,
police.
we've already.
Well, I mean, when's the last time we had a fire, you know? I mean,
But this also brings back about what I've mentioned before on council about going into Ocean City Wright Fire District.
we are in Ocean City right now.
No, not paying, we're not, we're paying a contract.
Yes, but we are using their service.
We're not in their district.
We're not in their district.
That's gonna be a whole lot cheaper?
Don't know, that's the
It-
different discussion.
That would be a, I don't want to dive too deep into that, but essentially it would just be that the taxpayers would be paying their taxes directly to Ocean City Wright.
Then we can keep our taxes high and fund more sheriff, right?
I don't have any comment on that.
Captain Ruiz is loving that.
I'm saying, you know, we could really make everybody happy.
But
we
at the end
need
of the day, there are, I mean, the bottom line is there are choices that need to be made. And you do have some cities where they have volunteer fire service, and that basically frees up funding for police. And so it's all about making those decisions. You know, right now we have a pretty good fire services contract. The other side of that is that we don't have the, 14 deputies.
Do we need them?
One of the things that I think will be, not I think, will be very helpful is, like Captain Rader mentioned, another acronym, and it doesn't even sound nice, NIBRS. I don't know what you guys are going to call that.
Nibers.
Okay, NIBRS. I'm thinking like nibbers. I'm like, that just doesn't. Anyways, that'll be helpful because it will give us some data to work off of, right? So you'll be able to see, okay, how do we compare to somebody else? Do we need to make more investments in deputies, or does it need to go somewhere else? So, for example, if you look at our call data, the property crime calls, a lot of those are retail theft. So how do you solve that? Is it our responsibility necessarily to solve that? Or is that something that some of the private businesses may need to have some better systems for theft deterrence? And so having that data, I think, will be very helpful for us as we move forward.
When we get it, I'll get it to you.
Thank you.
I do have one last question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
And you may or may not be able to answer, but why warnings versus citations?
Why warnings versus citations?
86% is quite high.
Yes, we love to educate our public. No one likes getting a ticket. And our repeat offenders, so when we pull over a car, it logs a tag, it logs the driver. So if we pull someone over and see they just got a warning last week for running a stop sign and they ran another stop sign, they're probably not getting another warning, probably getting a ticket. But how many times have you been pulled over, gotten a warning, or thankful, and you corrected your driving for it? We prefer the education route rather than the punishment route.
I'm going to say our spring breakers are going to differ with you because, y'all, the social media, you advertise, the sheriff's department advertises all the spring break tickets and,
We're talking about the underage drinking?
drinking.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
It doesn't deter from
I
drinking.
get that it's,
Yes, how many can you get?
right, but it's also becoming a competition with drivers through here about how fast can I go, and the motorcyclists around here are insane. I mean, it's
The deputies have discretion when it comes to almost all the traffic offenses, criminal and non-criminal. There's a couple of caveats there, DUI, suspended license, stuff like that. But almost every other traffic offense, they have discretion because no two drivers are the same. There could be something going on, and we prefer the education route. We're not trying to go the taxation by citation.
Well, judging from the amount of speeds that go through here, the education is not working. They're not getting the message.
Well, if it's a one-time offender because they're transient or they're traveling through on vacation, whether it's a ticket or a warning, it's not going to make a difference. They're only here a couple of days. But if we can educate first before we hit their pocketbook, that's our preferred route.
Can you stratify on the warnings, how many of those were more than once? Can you you said,
I don't know if we're able to parse that data out without going to each individual call and pulling each individual driver history. That would be an administrative nightmare.
because
But
it's hard to,
deputies routinely, I know when I did a lot of traffic stops, every vehicle I pulled over, I looked at the vehicle history. I looked at the driver's history before I made a final decision on a citation. And if I saw they got warnings before and recently, they were toting a ticket and oftentimes a full amount ticket.
because to our point, if those minor warnings, all those were first time stops, you would think that not all of those.
I can't say all those were first time offenders, but I can say a large majority of the folks that we encounter, especially in this area, they are tourists, they're vacationers. So giving them a ticket and they're gone in 2 days, when we could give them a warning and it accomplishes the same thing, we prefer the education route.
So I think this is a good discussion to have because this was one of the kind of supplemental options. And so that may be something that council wants to think about. So we were moving forward with a speed enforcement system with the school zone because the school's closing. That is no longer happening. I think as we all know, that would have absolutely helped with the school zone. At the same time, it would have been the one tool that we would have had to slow people down on Highway 98. And we had over 700 a day that were going 11 miles an hour over. We had 3 different speed studies done. So it was quite a bit. So that would be a question really for the council is, do we want to try out maybe hiring a deputy through roll call, try that a couple times to see what kind of a dent that does, to see if it helps. One deputy certainly can't do the job of a radar, but that's something that we may want to think about moving forward.
I'd like to try something because the amount of people that walk in this community is a good amount, and they walk. I mean, I personally won't walk down 98, but they do walk down 98, and it's not a matter of if a pedestrian is hit and killed; it's when. The speeds that they are going is something is going to happen. I mean, we've seen it time and time again.
And I think I mentioned this to you all before in Chapter Lewis Sheriff's Office. I ran it right before I transitioned. So through the month of November and December, I pulled deputies. I did a traffic detail and I sent them off and said, go stop everything that is violating traffic laws. I want volume of numbers. In that 2-month period, they did nearly 1,000 traffic stops. And that was with them still being pulled back for shortfalls and annual leave stuff and stuff. So they were not even full strength for the 2 months they were doing it. And it was nearly 1,000 traffic stops. Batteries, burglaries, thefts, these kind of crimes affect a very small portion of the society. Traffic affects everyone. Every one of us in here today probably saw something. We're like, what is that guy doing? Right. It's a very difficult problem trying to solve traffic because everybody does what they're going to do. Everybody probably is considered a bad driver, really and truly. My point in saying that too, and what Cam Raider kind of hit on, is we could go on a 98 and stop every car all day long for a month. And the second we pulled off, the next week, people would be right back doing it. I don't want to paint a picture of disparity that we're not going to do anything. I just don't want it to be the magic bullet that if you put deputies down there with lights on and you're stopping everybody, that you're going to affect traffic, because locals will remember, no. Years ago, you didn't speed through Shalimar because that's what they did. They stopped everything. They wrote everything. I got a ticket many, many, many years ago going through Shalimar. Okay. I can speak from personal experience. With the transient traffic that you guys have here, you do have local traffic for sure, but you are a main thoroughfare between Pensacola and Panama City. You have tourists. You don't have that same effect on writing tickets to people who go back to Indiana or Kentucky or Iowa or wherever they're from. It's not that lasting effect. Again, we can work with you. We can target traffic. We can do that stuff. I just don't want it to be this magic bullet that's going to solve all the issues with it. So that's just the point I just
Well,
want to make.
what would you think about putting additional red lights in?
Oh, good.
Typically speaking, traffic studies and traffic specialists will tell you that stop signs and red lights are not used to control traffic.
What about speed bumps?
Speed bumps are also not a preferred method because it also slows down. You'll start getting the fire service, you'll start getting EMS.
Humps. Speed
The
humps.
humps, they stop responses. An ambulance has to slow down to almost nothing to go over and traverse it. So you start affecting response times.
The other thing I will remind all of us, and we had this back with Mary Esther Elementary, we had the FDOT come in here and ask them to do a study to slow the traffic down. Unfortunately, they felt that it was right speed, the right zone, the right everything. Thank you very much. And we're not going to change a thing.
The interesting thing about I'm not a traffic specialist. I've done enough traffic enforcement. I've been to enough of the TPO meetings and that kind of thing. You can put whatever speed limit you want on a roadway. People inherently will drive what the road will allow them to. Case in point, in Destin Airport Road. Have you ever been on that road? It is a main point of speeding. The city council there decided they'd rather have traffic speed lowered so that they could allow golf carts to drive. It did not change the traffic pattern of people still driving 45 and 50 miles an hour. The road allows for it because of the way the concrete, the curves and everything else, the straightaways and all that. But in the end, we have to concentrate a large amount of traffic enforcement on that road through grants and everything else to try and control it because now you've dropped it 5 more minutes. So now it looks like there's more speeding because people are doing the same speeds. The speed's just lower, right? So it looks worse than it is. It's not an easy answer. Every area, whether it's residential, whether it's highway, whether it's, the state roads first, because you don't have any control over the state road. The state controls the speed limit and the width of the lanes and everything else. We can stop cars. We can write tickets. We can do warnings. That's our limit, our essentially our limit. We can put up speed signs and billboard signs and educate the public. There's a lot of now about having the signs with the red and green, blue flashing lights on it, whether we can do that or not do that. There's so many things put on us by DOT. If I put a sign, I have to have barrels. If it's going to be out there versus cones and all, nothing's easy. We can do all of that stuff. I guess my overarching theme is that we will do whatever we're able to do within the power to do, right? I just don't want to paint a picture that's going to make this huge impact. Motorcycles, they drive fast. The accidents prove it, right? I know that's a big concern for you watching these airmen drive around on there. We do education with the bases, right? We do campaigns with them to try and see the same. We were all 21 once, sooner or later for some of us in the room, and we were all invincible. We didn't think about the consequences of our actions. And unfortunately, it's not until someone gets into an accident and blows their motorcycle up in a million pieces before those things are realized, right? And then we see it on the news and everybody's in an uproar about it. And then we go back to our lives and driving patterns the way we used to. So it's just a touch of realism to understand the realistic abilities of what we can do and what the end result will be.
Well, Councilmember Oder, Mayor Pro Tem Oder, brought up earlier about the Mary Esther PD. And that was one of the biggest, and I was around here and I have friends that were on it. That was one of the biggest community complaints was that they were just out for the ticket. I mean, that really was, and so they really got one of the biggest avenues for getting rid of them was because the amount of tickets they get. So here we are in this realm
Totally.
of we're not ticketing enough, we're ticketing, so,
I
it
think
didn't- yeah.
with
it
all of
didn't
your
change
with all of your tenure in public service, I think you guys can all attest to the fact that they say you'll never make everybody happy. It's
not.
a good day if you can make some people happy at any point, right? Everybody has a different view of how to do your job. So
Got one more quick question. Hollywood Boulevard, we don't own it. It belongs to the county.
Up to Fort Walton Beach.
depending on where you're taught, yes.
Up to Fort Walton Beach. That's a fact. It stops at Fort Walton Beach, and then Fort Walton Beach owns Okaloosa County. I mean,
They have,
Hollywood owns.
Yeah.
there's some different jurisdictional boundaries in there depending on who owns what, but yes, essentially yes, depending on where you're talking about.
Thank you.
Good.
Good, thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. What do we want to happen for our next council meeting? What do you want to push forward? Is that what the next question is?
And you don't have to necessarily bring anything to the next council meeting. That is entirely up to the council. It could be the meeting in May. It could be during budget discussions that we talk about adding some additional tools for the next fiscal year. That is entirely up to the council.
You guys want to wait till When?
I think to May,
May?
May, yeah.
May? Okay, for law enforcement tools. What about sewer?
That needs to come back in April.
April. So April sewer, May law enforcement. Got it?
Got it.
Okay, is there anything else?
Oh, yeah.
Two other things real quick, and I'm sitting here thinking, why is Jacob still here? And now I realize why. So I'm very sorry about that. I'm very sorry about that. The intention was after the wastewater item to get kind of a quick update on if you remember, we had 2 sewer lines under Highway 98 and we cleaned those out and they need to be relined. And so I'd mentioned to Jacobs just to make some comments on that and kind of what the path forward is for that item. So if you all don't mind, if you can just give us kind of a quick update
Not
for
that
where you
you've been
think we
sitting
should
here for
go.
2
Would you
hours.
please make some sewer comments?
All right. Josh Robinson with Jacobs O&M. The particular issue we're talking about here, 2 laterals got hit on the east side of Miracle Strip months ago. They'd been point repaired and we needed to get them lined at that time. We spoke about that. Well, time has gone on. Those lines have got full of sand again. They need to be re-cleaned, re-cambered to show exactly the length of damage so we know what to charge to get them fixed. As of right now, we've got quotes from one company that we're still waiting to get a couple other quotes in what it's going to cost. And we hopefully should have those by mid next week. And from there, we'll know who to go with to get that done.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
And the reason too, I wanted to give you all that update is because typically this is something where we would go out to bid. But because of the issue with that line, we are suggesting that they bring back several quotes to the council meeting so that the council can hear it and make a decision moving forward.
Did you go out for bids or quotes? They're the same thing, right?
To an extent, we've got quotes. I've just met with a few different contractors that are there to know
Not
what.
formal.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Did you ask who hit the line? It was initially hit by Game and Construction
Okay.
when they were doing fiber optic boring on the north side.
Thank you.
So will then they be liable?
Yes.
That is an entirely different discussion. So at the end of the day, we do have to, I think, show or present that case to them, and then it will be up to their insurance company. But we will certainly involve Hayward in that discussion as well.
Are you abreast of this, Hayward?
I am now. We're familiar with it.
Good
I mean,
answer.
yeah, so there's a process, obviously we got to mark lines. We got to see whether or not they even called to have those marked. A lot of times they're kind of running and gunning, and so things get hit. But yeah, there's a process. There's some pretty strong statutory requirements. As long as we can check our boxes, and we should be in good shape. But yeah, we've got a couple of these on our radar.
Thank you.
And this, just for clarity, this is one we already have an open claim on. So this would be adding to that existing claim.
Okay.
The other item real quick, we had talked months, gosh, it may have been a year ago now, about adding a plaque to the new city hall. And so you all just have kind of a quick rendering of that. So back at that time, our understanding was that we essentially wanted to do the same thing as what we have out on this building. And so on that plaque, they had listed the mayor, city council, former council members, as well as I think the architect and the contractor. And so the architect has stated that he's happy to help with this. He can get us a plaque made. Just need your feedback as to what we put on it. The way that these are listed now, I think under city council was by position number, I believe. It doesn't really mean a whole lot in Mary Esther because we don't have districts. So it doesn't really matter how you all want to arrange that. Just if you could give us some feedback, you can do it tonight. We can do it at the next council meeting. It's entirely up to you.
I said alphabetically.
I said alphabetically.
What'd you say?
Alphabetical.
Oh, alphabetically.
In both sections.
Yeah,
the
city council and former. Just list everybody
I
alphabetical.
had emailed that to Susan, so that was prior when I first saw it.
And I did receive all of it. But as you know, if there's ever a difference of opinion, it's coming back to you. And so I just wanted you all to have the opportunity
But
to
do
have
we have
that
a diff-
discussion.
Anybody like that idea? Don't like that idea? You want to put it on a voting thing next council meeting to vote on this thing?
If there's a consensus, we don't need to.
Okay.
I just wanted to put it out there, and I didn't want you to show up at a ribbon cutting and you go, what the heck? Where did those names come
We're
from?
going to say that anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, is there a consensus as one way or the other tonight?
I don't, what's the difference?
I mean, Susan and I both said alphabetical.
The name. Is this alphabetical out here? Oh, it's not. Okay.
I do not know.
Caldwell is, and you're coming back though. You're not going to keep going to your car. You're going
I mean, I think just to keep it simple, alphabetical, I think
coming back, woman.
keep it simple, alphabetical would be the way to go.
Okay.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, Mr. Oder?
By our city charter, I'm messing with you now, Mayor. You're a weak mayor. Should we have the council at the top and the mayor below us?
Slam. As long as the mayor's in alphabetical order.
Okay, works for me. No, I mentioned also alphabetical order before. That's why I asked Jared to, wait a minute, you didn't change.
Boy, you want a beer tonight, I'll tell you. Okay.
I think most cities just kind of identify mayor first and then council anyway, yeah.
As a weak mayor, I highly recommend that. Okay, anyway. Are we gonna talk? Let's, all right, real quick. Closing comments and other comments. April, you got it.
I hope everyone enjoyed their coaster. That was courtesy of Senator Trumbull sent those to me because I'm always threatening to steal one of his coasters and he had those made. and sent to me.
Thank
So,
you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Susan?
I have nothing.
Richard? I've got nothing.
Welcome aboard, Captain Reagan.
Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Yes.
Sorry your first day is so aggressive. They're only gonna get worse, okay? Mr. Oder? Nothing? Okay, we're adjourned. Okay, you.
I actually do
City
have
clerk?
something.
Check your mailbox.
Manager?
Yeah, mail, but I do actually have a real thing for once.
Okay. City manager, you got anything?
I've said enough tonight. I'll leave it all to Dylan.
Yeah, I have an actual thing.
Cybersecurity.
We're
we
starting,
got it.
yeah, my usual. We're starting the yard of the month back up. How do you want me to proceed in terms of, if we don't receive any, some council members say we should have the city submit people, some people say we should not.
No,
How do you want to proceed?
I would like, first of all, citizens, and then other people. Just other people, could it be council, could be, we'll take a look at it, show us the picture, if it's a beautiful place, you guys nominate it, and I'll put the sign out.
So if we don't receive any, do you want the city to go out and see?
Please.
Okay,
I
thank
mean,
you.
that's what we've been doing, so yeah, I'd like to continue that, unless, it's easy on us.
And I would agree. I mean, codes, and as far as I'm concerned, is the sheriff.
Yeah. If you
Jake,
see-
any of you guys, hey, just really go out of the way.
For yard of the
Give
month.
Dylan, hey, 123 Main Street USA really looks nice. I mean, yeah.
We'll send, we'll
They're-
get a picture.
You're on the streets more than I am. So,
That's true. You're deferred to him. Finance, you got anything? Code enforcement? Okay, we're